Today I thought I would show you how fun and easy it is to do pen and ink on fabric. My name is Debra L. Welty of Jubilee Junction Art Studio. My website is qualityart.com. I've chosen to do mine on a piece of muslin that has been made into a little square that I pin on a pillow so that I can change it by the seasons. I have already taken the liberty to outline it because you can do that without watching me. And I like to keep my original pattern handy. In order to know how to put patterns on fabric, you can watch one of my other YouTube videos. And then I have what I call an inking chart because I have done this project before. As you can see, I have a photograph here of it. It shows me where I have chosen to ink. The pen I am using is called an Identi-pen. It has a fine end that I use to outline it and an extra fine end that I will be doing the detailing. I chose this design because it has a little bit of everything in it and it'll be quick to do. When I look at wood grain just has lines that come down, and it's okay to go through that because it won't really show up. But wherever I see a little bulge here, I'm going to make a knot. And then I'm going to make the wood grain go around my knot. I've got some more lines here. Don't make them all exactly the same length. You don't want it to look like little soldiers or a troop of little ants running down through here. Make some of them longer, some of them shorter. You can curve some of them. You could put another knot here where that is bulging out. But it's mostly just a lot of lines. Rough broken lines, some dark ones. Here where the fence post has torn, we could make it darker so it looks like it's cracked all the way down through there. This is an old fence line, so I'm going to put some barbs on it. And you can put those wherever you want to. And then we've got some leaves. When I did the outlining, I only outlined. I didn't do things like veins. Now the veins are following the shape of the leaf, the curve of the leaf. And on a pumpkin leaf, they all come from the center here. One stroke is called the dots to do our shading, so I'm going to use that on the leaves. I'm going to pretend that this comes up, catches the light, and goes away, so it's going to be darker down here. I hold my pen straight up and down, and you should be able to hear that. The closer together my dots are, the darker the shading will be. The farther away they are, the lighter the shading will be. And I'm not going to have time to do every little detail of this in my video for this YouTube thing. On the stem here, I'm going to do a few lines kind of similar to what my wood grain, just to give a little texture. Now on the pumpkin, I'm going to do another type of shading, which is a straight stroke. When you do this stroke, you always start where your outlining is and you pull away. Now I am lifting my pen. I do it so fast that it looks like I'm scribbling back and forth, but I'm setting my pen down, I'm pulling a stroke, and I'm lifting it as I pull away. If I don't think that's dark enough, I can also come and I can pull the other direction, which would be a cross-hatching shading stroke. And do you see how it gets darker? With pen and ink, you need to do lots and lots of light strokes that compound, I guess is a good word for it, to make a darker area. You don't want to take and do a dark stroke. See, that's not very attractive at all. And we'll go both directions here. We'll get a little bit of shading on this, enough so that I can put some paint on here. You can do pen and ink with any medium. You can do it on watercolor paper, wood, fabric, many surfaces. One of the things you want to keep in mind is that you want to do it on a light value surface. The inking will not show up on a really dark surface. And my background is my highlight or my lightest value. You want to think about that when you're choosing also your fabric or your surface. Fabric is one of the harder ones to paint, so that's why I thought I would show you. I'm going to put a little bit of shading right here and a little bit coming up from here because this is bulging right here. We want to create that illusion. I wanted to show you how I apply the paint to the fabric because this is sort of my own technique that I've made up. Take an older brush, and I am using Deco Art So Soft fabric paints. This happens to be the Glimmer, and I will paint this entire fence post in Glimmer. With pen and ink, your paint needs to be transparent, and fabric paint is not transparent. Therefore, I need to do something to make it appear transparent, or something that will make my paint become transparent when I apply it. Oil paints and watercolors are already transparent. They're a natural choice to use for pen and ink. With acrylics, you would have to do something similar to this to make them transparent if you ink first, but many people choose to ink after their acrylic painting has dried. I love pen and ink. I love setting in all my shading. Therefore, I like to get the inking in first. Now, since it's a fence post, we're going to use Deco Art So Soft Fabric Acrylic Burnt Sienna. And remember, my background is my lightest value. So I'm going to start in the areas of my fence post that are naturally going to be a little bit darker. And you can see that I have very tiny amounts of paint out compared to how much glitter. Because I'm not going to put much paint on here, and I'm barely skimming over the surface as I scruff this burnt sienna over my fence post. I'll grab a tiny bit more down here. It's going to be a little bit darker where my stem is casting a shadow. And I just want a very, very light coating to start off with. And if I think it needs more color, I can add a little more paint, but you can't really very easily take it back off. So always be very, very cautious to start off with how much paint you use. And do you see how nice those little extra amounts have added to it because I kept the rest of it pale. Now I grabbed a little bit of dark chocolate so that I got a little bit of a different shading of brown in here. And black also looks really nice on it. And there we've got a nice fence post. Now the next thing that we need to do is the leaves. We'll just do this one leaf, coat it heavily, and then we'll go into the light green. We always start in the darkest areas and we stretch it upwards, outwards to the lighter value areas. Remember, this is where it was catching the light, so I'm not really going to put paint there. I'm going to grab my darker green, which in this case is olive. My first application of green was Hauser Light, and I will darken that a little bit. Yeah, I got a stain there of red paint on it, but that's okay. We'll just pretend it's a tint. And I could keep playing with that and darkening it if I want to, but I have to keep in mind I want this background to show through. Now for your pumpkin, you can paint all of the pumpkin at the same time. We're just going to do this one side since I did not finish inking the other. And I am going to take tangerine, a small amount of tangerine here where I've got the shading, and then I'm going to stretch it so that there's basically just a whisper of paint on the rest of those light areas. And then I'm going to grab some cadmium orange. I started with tangerine. I'm going to put some cadmium orange here in the darkest areas. Very gently coax it out into those light areas, but I don't want to lose that nice glow of my tangerine color. And lastly, I will grab a touch of Christmas red. And I will continue painting the rest of this, but we're out of time today for our little short tutorial. I hope this has been fun, and if you have any questions, just give me a holler at jubileejunction@gmail.com.